All right, I'm gonna challenge you for a sec. I'm gonna challenge your beliefs. I'm gonna challenge everything you've been conditioned to do. You can't make a change in your life and you're continuously trying to force change. You're forcing yourself who you want to become. You're forcing new habits. You're forcing self-improvement, and that's why it's not happening for you. I'm gonna challenge you on that and say you're wrong. You're doing too much. You actually have to do less. You have to start surrendering. You can't force positivity. You can't force belief in yourself. You can't just force affirmations. You can't keep constantly telling yourself that you're someone that you actually aren't at your core. If you're not believing it, like I said in previous videos, with every single cell in your body, there is no point. So how do we actually create change in our life? I think our society is so programmed to push against what we don't want, to push forward and force improvement, to force gains. When nothing is going right in your life, sometimes you just gotta let go. Yes, it is true that your thoughts or your dominant thoughts create your reality. But a lot of us hear that and then we go trying to force positive thoughts, to flood ourselves with positive thoughts. And you hear it a lot from self-help people. You hear it a lot from the self-improvement community. But honestly, every time I hear it, I cringe. Because every time we try to force positive thoughts or positive beliefs, we're actually making the negative beliefs come up that much stronger because unbeknownst to us, we're feeding it more energy. Anytime we're forcing something down, it's like a natural law. It comes up stronger because we keep fueling it and fueling it. It'll be very, very, very beneficial to us to analyze our thought patterns and analyze the triggers that cause us to go down these negative thought loops. It's beneficial to observe our inner critic. Is it actually true, or is it just trying to keep us safe? Is it just a protection mechanism? Are the limitations that we impose on ourselves actually true? Most of the time they're not. But once we start gaining an awareness for how we're programmed, how our brain is wired, and how it automatically reacts to things, how do we go about changing it? And I gotta say that this is a process that does not happen overnight, so you can't just give up when you see no results. The key is not to try to just bombard ourselves with positivity, bombard ourselves with things that we don't actually believe, but actually all we have to do is just release and surrender the negative thought patterns. It sounds simple. It sounds almost too simple. But I promise you, it created huge change in my life. Once I flipped this switch in my mind, I finally started letting go of all the stuff my mind was just making up. And I realized that it actually just wasn't true. And I didn't fight it, I just surrendered. I just let go of having to do anything. And when we truly surrender, we actually let go and we stop trying to force things. And yes, we still have an intention. We still have a direction of where we want to go, because if we don't, we'll probably end up being depressed. We'll probably have nothing to shoot for. We'll have no purpose. We got to have that intention. We got to keep the vision. But we got to surrender all the little details to how it'll work out. We got to surrender when the desire will be fulfilled. We got to surrender how it'll be fulfilled. I'm gonna give you the perfect analogy for this, and it's really gonna drive it home. So you know that medieval thing where the knight or whatever, he's rolling up to the rock with the sword stuck in it, and there's like a bunch of knights, bunch of people trying to be king or whatever. All the dudes, they're trying to pull that sword out. They're trying to use all this force. They're trying to yank it out, and they can't make it budge. And then this other dude comes up, and he barely touches the sword. He barely uses any force, and he just pulls it out with no effort. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about surrendering. Not as much force is required as you think to get what you want. And yes, I'm not saying just completely just let go of everything and stop taking action and stop getting out of bed. We gotta take action for sure. But I think a lot of our anxiety comes from controlling too much. And when life doesn't go the way that we planned in our head, we beat ourselves up instead of just surrendering. Okay, it happened, let it go and learn from it and move on. We gotta release it from our consciousness. And this is super key because a lot of us are just taking on everything that happens to us subconsciously. And we're holding all of that in. And all of it is weighing us down. And that's why we have no energy, because we're taking all this shit in and we're not processing it and we're not releasing it, and it's weighing us down like crazy. So now we're analyzing our mental habits. We're not judging them, we're just observing them. We're not reacting to them, we're just noticing them. And then maybe you pinpoint, okay, I have this disempowering belief. I've noticed it. I think I'm not capable. I think I'm not attractive because of what someone told me in the past. And that brings me to trauma. Trauma, right? Trauma is literally controlling us. It's weighing down our entire population. Our trauma is so heavy, but we haven't even noticed that it's controlling us in the first place, so we can't even begin to process it. We're subconsciously holding on to one thing someone told us in the past, maybe something that happened in our childhood, either big or small. And I'm not discounting the trauma. Trauma is super serious, and I'm not just saying like avoid the trauma. Trauma is not real. But we got to come to this realization that we're letting literally one instance control the entire direction of our lives. Once we realize how silly that is, it becomes so much easier to just release it. We're not resisting that thing. We're not trying to avoid negative thoughts. The real way to rewire yourself, it's a continuous process of noticing, observing your thoughts in real time. Notice when you're holding yourself back, limiting yourself, disempowering yourself, and then constantly reminding yourself that you don't have to feed into that thought. You decide if it's true or not. You got to keep reminding yourself to let them go. You can decide what you believe. And what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the world, will be true in your reality. But a lot of us are trying to force these beliefs. We're trying to push the negative ones down. But instead, we got to stop resisting them. We got to notice them and release them from our consciousness. I like to picture like steam being released from my head. And then those negative thoughts start to lose their power because we're no longer fueling it. And now we can start to install new programs, new beliefs, because we have like wiped the slate clean. We have given ourselves permission to feel everything that's holding us back. Because a lot of the times we're stimulating ourselves, we're medicating ourselves to avoid what's deep down inside of us. And you gotta let all that junk come up. You gotta face it. And then instead of pushing, you gotta do nothing. Like I feel so good when I'm stressing about something that's gonna happen in the future, or if I'm worrying about something that happened in the past, I remind myself that the most empowering thing I can do is literally just surrender. Surrender to what life is throwing at me. Surrender my control. And when I'm just being, that's my most natural state. When I'm surrendering and I'm not forcing, that's when I'm most authentic. But like maybe the solution for you is not to keep doing more and keep burning yourself out. Maybe it's to do nothing. Maybe it's to let go. Maybe it's to surrender. The way to win the battle within yourself is to not get entangled with it, not fight with it, but actually rise above the battle. Let go of your idea of how things should be and flow with life. And I guarantee you, you'll be less stressed. You'll be less anxious. And over time, you're going to completely rewire how you think. You're going to completely rewire how you show up. If you got value from this, check out my other videos. I hope this helps. Peace.